Thank you, Reverend Nancy. Thank you, Reverend Debbie. Thank you, David, for a lovely song, kind of a different change of pace from your stuff. It was beautiful. And thank you for the reading, Celeste. That was lovely. So this is a new month, March 1st today, and our theme for March is What If? And today's title, as suggested, is A World of Pure Imagination. And I love this kind of talk, because this is what we do when we do prayer treatment. We talk to people, they come to us, we say, what's on your mind, what's troubling you, what can I pray for with you? And we listen to what their situation is, and often it's relationships or money or health, something like that. And then we listen for a while, and then we say, well, how would that situation look if it were perfect, if it were good? Tell me about that. How would that relationship at work look? How would you feel when you got up in the morning? How would it feel if you didn't have that physical ailment anymore? We ask them to look at the end result. So I love this thought of imagination. So this morning I'm going to cover two things. One is cover the imagination of imagining things okay in your personal life, your finances, your energy, your health, your relationships, anything that is heavy on your mind. How can we personally use our imagination to talk to about that? And then the other thing is, then how do we make the world a better place? That's one of our slogans in Science of Mind, is making the world a better place for everybody. And so first we deal with us, right? And then we can let that good radiate to everything and everyone. Ernest Holmes said, imagination carries with it feelings and conviction, which means life and action. It awakens within us all the inner forces of nature and stirs into action latent powers which otherwise would never come to the surface. So Holmes talked about this and how important imagination is in our lives. And I'm going to tell you what the key to what I'm talking about is today. So this is the key. Fill your mind with the feelings of your desires already fulfilled. You've got these desires. Fill your mind with the feelings of them being already fulfilled. That's what we do in treatment, and that is a big key to living life in a positive way. There are some beautiful writings in the Bible. Apostle Paul was never one of my favorites because I always blamed him for keeping the women from having much power in the church. Even up till today, there are churches that I know of that women can't go to the meetings, they can't vote, they're second-class citizens when it comes to that. But some of the stuff he wrote is beautiful. And one of the passages I like that he wrote was in a letter to the Philippians, chapter 4, verse 8. And this is one of the translations, probably not one of the most beautiful, but whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about these things. That's what St. Paul said all those many years ago. Think about the positive things. Another verse, he says something like, keep your eye on the prize. Don't worry about how to get there. Keep your eye on the prize. Keep your thoughts positive and constructive. Is that challenging? Yeah, it's challenging because our humanity kind of gets us thinking about other stuff that isn't so positive. It isn't so constructive. We can go down that slippery slope. And when you understand the freedom-giving function of the imagination, you hold in your hand the key to the solution to all your problems. Doesn't matter what they are. When we can imagine the good, that is the key to the solution. And how does that freedom come about? You trust that you must imagine that you're already experiencing what you desire. Assume the feeling of fulfillment of your desire until you're possessed by it. And when we do that, it pushes out all the doubts and all the fears and all the other stuff. Keeping our mind on the prize, staying positive. The assumption of the feeling of your desire fulfilled makes a future dream a present fact. And this is what we want to keep in mind today, the feeling of your desire fulfilled. You know, as kids, didn't we have great imaginations? I did. We did. Now, when I was a kid, we didn't have things like this in our pocket. You know, I didn't have a TV in my house until I was probably 10 years old or so. I mean, I did have siblings, I did have cousins, and we had imaginations, and we played all kinds of fun games that we made up. We had to. We had nothing. We had no little thing like this to pull up anything. We had to get it here. At my house, if we went into the hay barn, that was not a hay barn. It was a cougar's den. And we were cougars. We were a family of cougars. We were jumping from hay bale to hay bale. We were foraging for food. I mean, one of the games we played, and it was so real. It just felt so much fun. We had another, my grandpa had a home not far from us, and in his pasture there were these big tree stumps, and they were not attached. They were like out of the ground. And so we grabbed these big tree stumps and put them in a circle to make a stump house. Well, that stump house was a fort. It was a house. You know, here's where we kept the ammo. Here's where we kept the food. Here's the little place we looked out to watch for the enemy. We had more fun in that stump house because it was whatever we made it, and it was our imagination. It was so real to us. We used our imagination. Another thing we played was raft, and usually it was somebody's bed, or at my uncle's house they had we were very careful in their attic because they just had those, what do you call them, 6x4s or 2x4s or whatever they were. But between them, if you stepped, you'd go through the ceiling because it was just like whatever that was made of. So, but we had this old mattress up there laid across these boards, and that was our raft. And, you know, it was always nighttime, and we're going on this raft, and here's where we kept the food, and here's where we kept the ammo. I mean, we were always in trouble. It was always dangers. But what fun. And we had more games like that than I can tell you about. It was just, we used our imagination. And the nice part of this is that, guess what? We can still use our imagination, but now the thing to use our imagination for is setting an intention about our desires. I want to have a good relationship with my boss at work. That's an intention, and we can imagine, do a little movie in our mind about getting along with that boss at work. So we determine what the desire is. You got to spend some time thinking, what's really important to me? What areas of my life do I want to work on? Ernest Holmes says, if it's for the good of all, harm of none, go for it. Go for it. And so I did this years ago, and I think I was just getting into science of mind, but I must have read something like this because I was working as a stockbroker, and I had just been working as a sales assistant, secretary, had my typewriter. Now my typewriter was gone, and I got a telephone, and I'm supposed to sell stocks and bonds. I think I'm 26 years old, 27 years old. I know nobody with money. I have passed all the tests. I kind of know the mechanics of that. But, you know, I'm on my own now. And a week before I was supposed to go into production, I was told there's no draw. You get nothing. You work from day one, you're on commission. So it was a very challenging time. And I did this in my mind. I saw myself walking down the hall, running into the guys that own the company, and they would greet me with a smile and call me by name. Now, they probably knew my name, but I certainly did not get respect from them as a new stockbroker. And that's what I was visualizing, walking down the hall, seeing them come and big smile on their face, greeting me by name, and I'm feeling respect from them. And guess what? I mean, it didn't happen in the first couple weeks, but it did happen. It did happen. And I felt very respected by these people, and I believe that this is what I needed to do for me to convince myself that that could happen. I needed to see it. I needed to feel it. And that's what I did those many years ago. And we can all do that. Think about what you want. Feel yourself being there. Hear the dialogue. How would you respond? Feel that peace. Feel that love. Feel that security. And I would suggest that you also find a particular time in your life when you can practice this. Like I do my visualizations at the same time I do my spiritual practices in the morning. I read this, I read that, I do this. I got my prayer list of who I'm praying for, and I also do some visualization. It doesn't have to take a long time. I just see that movie in my mind the way I want things to be. And we can supplement that kind of stuff by doing these vision boards. You know, find the pictures of how your family would look sitting around the dining room table, having a pleasant time, everybody smiling, everybody loves each other, that kind of stuff. Find the words you want. I want peace, I want love, I want harmony. Put those in front of you so that it's a visual for you. So those are a couple things that we can do. And interestingly enough, our ability to imagine is unique to being human. You know, we're given this gift of imagination, and we can use it. It's our tool. It's our tool for an instrument to create whatever we want in our lives. So, and now you get this idea of how in your own life you can do this for your health, for your finances, for your relationships, whatever it is. You know, sometimes I'll just do a visualization as I'm sitting there in the morning. I'll do a visualization for my day. You know, if I'm driving someplace, I visualize a safe and pleasant drive, coming out of a meeting, feeling good and fed, that kind of stuff. So we know that we can do that for ourselves. Now let's consider how we use this imagination to create this world that works for everybody. There's a guy by the name of Dr. Mark Lamont Hill. Anybody know who that is? He's an American academic, an author, an activist, and a TV personality. And he says this: we have to be able to build a world that doesn't even exist yet. That's a different imagination. So we're challenged with this. You know, We don't have a world of peace out there. We're challenged with creating a world that works for everybody, a world of peace. And if we all tapped into this idea, if we all could see this beautiful world of peace and love, we would have a loving, unified, transformed world with this new imagination. The world we imagine shapes the world we create. Imagine it up here first. And even though we see plenty of conflict and plenty of challenges, just remember that this imagination stuff is not fantasy, it is a spiritual power. So we use things like meditation and prayer and affirmations to co-create. So when we think about how can I change the world, this is certainly one of the tools we use, our prayers, our meditation, affirmation. We can reimagine justice. What if there were a blueprint for equity and love and belonging? And how do we do this? We start every day by seeing the good, just visualizing it in our mind. And again, you might want to do a vision board of people of different ethnicities being together and getting along and holding hands and singing songs and all that good stuff. There was I got something from the Center for Spiritual Living, and they brought up the idea of harnessing AI, that's artificial intelligence, harnessing that for good. And you know, with I had a guy come up to me in my Optimist group several months ago, and he said, you know, Joanne, you can go to AI and you can tell ChatGPT, create a 10-minute sermon for me around imagination. And boom, you're going to get one. It's not going to take long. And you might say, well, and quote Ernest Holmes and Charles Fillmore and stress these 3 points, something like that. And I have never done that, but that's a tool. And I might do that someday. Why not? Why not use that? I use it in our prison program quite a bit. We have a book that we're reading now in prison called 12 Laws of the Universe. It's a small book, and the chapters are very short. You know, we've got an hour and 45 minutes in Lino Lakes to talk to this circle of inmates about the 12 laws of the universe. Well, if the chapter's only 4 pages or something like that, you better come up with some provocative questions because you want the conversation to be rich. You want to be really having some meat to give them. And so this is what I do, and I pretty much do it every time I'm the lead, go into ChatGPT and say, I facilitate this class at the prison. We're using this book, this chapter. I mean, this is how this stuff works. This chapter, and I need an icebreaker question, and I need some discussion questions. Boom, just like that, they're there. And not that I can use everything I see there, but there's lots of times good stuff that I can use, and it makes my job a lot easier, and I think it makes the experience richer for everybody. We can do that even with our spiritual mind treatments. You can go into ChatGPT and say this, and I've never done this, but I did it just for today. Using the 5 steps of spiritual mind treatment used in Centers for Spiritual Living, create a prayer emphasizing the use of our imagination to manifest our desires. Boom. Here's the prayer. And the point that CSL is making is this. We can use this for positive things, or it can be negative, like a student. If a student thinks they're just going to cheat their way through college or high school by stealing everything, using everything, but, then you got to take the test. What's going to happen then? I mean, I really don't know how that works, but I think that we can all get caught up in using this for good. And the comment that they made in the information they sent was AI is influencing every aspect of society, including education, labor, and healthcare, but its trajectory is determined by the imagination of its creators and users. So all kinds of ways we can use this imagination in our lifetime. And of course, it can be used for good or bad. Imagination gives us freedom. Instead of worrying and fretting and being anxious about this, that, and the next thing, we can look at our situation in a different way. We can look at the world in a different way. And as Ernest Holmes says, he says, when we use our creative imagination in strong faith, we co-create. We can envision safety, justice, and belonging for all. So this imagination stuff is wonderful, and we can use it. And I'm going to suggest some homework this week. As we've talked about, our tendency as humans is to go that other route and use our imaginations, and we're worrying and we're fretting and we're being decisive, and how easy it is to get that way. If you turn on the news and listen to a couple newscasts, you're like, oh my gosh, the world is difficult. How are we ever going to overcome this? We can go down that road pretty easily. And how about that idea of resentment and blame? Those thoughts come so easily. You know, I can be taking a shower and think of something that happened 50 years ago and get pretty darn riled up. That wasn't fair. How did that? For what? I really set an intention in my life to let that stuff go as soon as I am aware that I'm entertaining something like that. Do we sometimes imagine there's not enough money, not enough love, not enough friendship? What I'm suggesting is that instead of going that route, that we shift to imagining abundance and harmony and love and wonderful possibilities. This is a gift we've been given. And this is what I suggest you do this week. Think about, where do I kind of tend to go with my imagination, and can I make a shift and declare this is what I desire in my life. And as St. Paul says, think on these things. So I would ask you now to join me in a spiritual mind treatment or an affirmative prayer. If you just take a deep breath, just relax where you're sitting. I'll say this in first person as though it's for me, it's for everybody. I know there's but one power in the universe, and it is a power of love and joy and harmony and abundance. It's all good. I know that very power has the perfect solution to any perceived dilemma in my life. And I know I am one with it. It experiences life in, as, and through me. And with this powerful inward spirit, I speak these words. I appreciate the gift of imagination, and I now set an intention to spend time every day imagining just how I desire life to unfold in every area of my life, my personal life, relationships, finance, health, as well as radiating that light within me to everything and everyone. I trust I am being guided to be a light of healing in every area of life, on every level. In gratitude that this is how the law of life works. It is done unto us as we believe. I release these words to the law for perfect manifestation, and so it is.